Hi. Before I begin, I'm just going to turn my shoes on. um, it's really exciting to be here right now, and I'm talking about our MakerJawn Initiative. So I guess libraries have traditionally been places to consume things like books and information. But the MakerJawn Initiative seeks to change all of that and add to it. The MakerJawn Initiative seeks to make libraries into places where you're actually actively creating things, not just learning about things. Oh, I pressed the wrong button on here. Oh, there you go, okay. So we work with youth in community libraries. We guide them through a series of programs to provide mentorship. We help them to articulate their interests. We expose them to tools and technology, all to guide them as they create personally meaningful artifacts. And these artifacts, these objects like this, reflect things like, am I not speaking into my mic? I'm seeing someone point up. Is that a little better? Okay, cool. These personally meaningful artifacts usually reflect their interests, their goals, their creativity, and their inspiration. We're embedded within neighborhood libraries in some of the most resource-poor areas of the city. This is mostly North and West Philadelphia. And these are also communities that have seen a really high influx of a lot of young artists moving into these communities. Now, what's been happening in Philadelphia is that you have a lot of artists moving into these areas, and you have a lot of community members, and there isn't really a forum, and there really isn't an opportunity for these two communities to mix. And our MakerJawn Initiative seeks to basically leverage what's happening in these communities population-wise and turn it into something positive. How can we make what's happening turn into a transformative and positive experience for everyone that's in these communities? So something interesting happens when you take a bunch of kids from a community and a bunch of artists from a community, put them together in a room, let's say in the McPherson Square branch of the North Philadelphia Library Cluster System. And then you give them a bunch of things like microcontrollers and LEDs and conductive thread. Well, they start making things. And the things that they're making are all across the board because there's no real roadmap for any of this technology. It's so new. So basically what's happened is that anyone can be an expert. A kid can teach another kid. An adult can teach a teen. A teen can teach another teen. We've, in a way, democratized the learning process here. So I want you to take this image of what these libraries in North Philly and West Philly are like and compare it to your childhood remembrance of what a library was to you. It was probably a place that had a lot of books in it. There was probably a reference desk and a circulation desk. But the people who were working at this library probably weren't the sort of people who wanted to work directly with you to help you to figure out what you're interested in. They probably weren't the kind of people who wanted to learn alongside you. And that's what we're trying to do with our MakerJawn Initiative. We're trying to turn libraries on their heads. We want libraries to be places that nourish and encourage this sort of question asking to youth in our communities. I also want to put MakerJawn into a bit of context in terms of what the educational world in Philadelphia looks like right now. So the average classroom size in Philadelphia, there's about 33 students to every one teacher. If you leave Philadelphia and go into the rest of the country, the average classroom size is about 22 students to each teacher. A lot of schools in Philadelphia have been forced to completely eliminate arts programming. That includes music. A lot of schools have also eliminated athletics. And many schools only have part-time guidance counselors and part-time nurses. So larger classroom sizes and fewer teachers means a lot less individualized attention on youth. And what's happening is that Philadelphia just can't adequately support these and nurture these growing curious minds. I'd also like to put this in the context of geography a little bit in terms of what the city is like. So I moved to Philadelphia about 7 years ago, and I bike everywhere. So the first thing I did was I bought a cyclist map of the city. And the map that I bought was in that green rectangle that you see on the screen. And actually all of the red dots that you see, those are all of the sites that we're currently in. So I had this map of the city, and it's really limited. I mean, there's so much more to the city than what's on that green rectangle. And so clearly someone at this map company decided that if you're a tourist, you're a cyclist, you're visiting Philadelphia, that's the only area you need to see. It was almost like the rest of the city just didn't even exist. And whether someone made that decision because they thought that there was no cultural significance outside of that square, or maybe they thought that there was nothing to see there, or it was a poor area, or was a possibly dangerous area to go to. But either way, I feel like this kind of thing, it's a tourism map, just further highlights the sort of neglect that these neighborhoods have been on the receiving end of time and time again. But I don't want to focus on all of the bad things in the city. I want to talk about all the cool things that we're doing with the MakerJawn Initiative. So these are art bots, and this is a project that we do at all of our branches. And the way that you make an art bot is you get a dollar store toothbrush, an electric toothbrush. You can pop out the battery, and if you look inside, you can see a motor. You can grab that with a pair of needle nose pliers, pull it out, solder a couple of wires onto it, and attach those back to the battery. And you basically have this thing that starts spinning. And you can take markers and tape them onto this motor, and it starts making this automatic concentric art. And what's amazing about this is that we've taught kids how to take this everyday object, an object that's so everyday, it's almost hilariously boring, and turn it into this tool for creative expression. This is also one of my favorite projects. It's called Copper Tape Notebooking. So it's a writing and poetry workshop. And basically, what we have kids do is make a notebook. So they sew together their own like moleskin. And then they have a copper tape circuit that they construct. And this copper tape circuit connects a battery to an LED. So literally, as the kid is flipping through these pages and writing poetry or writing stories or whatever, literally each page is illuminated. Now you can take what that kid has learned there and you can encourage them to add different things, different elements onto this copper tape notebook, like a switch so they could press different places of the page and have the lights go on and off. You could have them add a light sensor or a proximity sensor, or they can go back to what they learned with the art bots and add a motor onto this. And what's so beautiful about these copper tape notebooks is that there are all of these different forms of literacy that are informing and amplifying each other. So at the end, you have this really enriched artifact that you wouldn't have otherwise. So what's different about the kind of learning that's happening in these libraries that's different from the kind of learning that's happening in public high schools around Philly? Well, I think it all has to do with the way that we as mentors are guiding this kind of learning and talking about the learning process. So one thing that we talk a lot about is that learning needs to be interest-driven. So we never give a kid a set of instructions to follow in order to create something. We give them tools and materials, and then we just let them play. And the important thing is that they are finding their own interest in the tools and materials. We never tell them what to do. It's also inquiry-driven. So we want to encourage kids to become the kinds of people who ask questions. And we try to model that sort of question-asking side of ourselves to them. Because, I mean, they've been trained their whole lives to give answers. That's what the SATs are all about, and that's what public school is all about. It's about being able to answer a question and answer it correctly, and you have one shot to do it. And that leads into acknowledging failure as well as success. I would say the hardest part about our job is sitting back and watching a kid mess up over and over again, because you really want to intervene, you really want to help them. But you can't do that because there's something that's very, very important that's happening at that moment. That kid is building up resilience. They're figuring it out, and that's a really essential part to the learning process. This is another example of an artifact, and it's called kindness cards. So it's a really simple circuit. It's on a business card size piece of paper, and it's folded in half, so that when you hand this kindness card to somebody else, the light goes off. And we had designed these as this kind of guerrilla marketing campaign to get kids more interested in our program. But what we realized was that kids were actually starting to make really meaningful messages using these kindness cards. And it was because a mentor was sitting down with them and engaging them in a conversation using these cards. So she's getting them to talk about people that they really loved, people they really cared about, and how they supported each other. So all of these kids had the same medium. They had the exact same business card size piece of paper and the same circuit, but the messages were just all over the place. It was really amazing and inspiring to see how these messages change from person to person. And what we learned from this is that mentors and the youth that we were working with really wanted to find that personal side of technology. They wanted to be able to use these things as a means to express their own individuality. And it was really cool to see these conversations that were coming out of this. It was conversations like, what is my community and how do I fit into it? What are the things that my community can give to me? And how can I be a part of my community and still maintain my individuality? So now shifting to the library side of things, when I say the word maker, a lot of people think of some buzzwords like STEM or Arduino or maker fairs or something like that. And there are a lot of libraries around the country that are leveraging the maker movement to teach things like coding or, let's say, how to use a 3D printer. And that's wonderful, but not enough libraries are talking about how we can use the maker movement to improve access to new technology, to non-dominant youth, like the people that we serve in North and West Philadelphia. Not enough libraries are talking about the maker movement as a way of introducing learners that might be a little more reluctant to learn things like engineering and mathematics. I mean, that was me as a kid. That was me. That's me now. And not enough libraries are talking about the maker movement as a way of building community. So we think that all libraries should be thinking like this. They need to be thinking at this hyper-local level, starting with the community member. But they also need to be thinking at the larger scale of tech innovation. How can we use technology to improve access to these materials? And how can we teach creative technology in a way that's as accessible as you would approach a lump of Play-Doh? So the MakerJawn Initiative has started as this really small passion from just a few people, some of you who are in this room, and it's grown to this national model of service, which has been pretty amazing. And I'm really happy to say that actually last week, MakerJawn was just awarded a $500,000 grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to expand programming in those same communities in North and West Philadelphia. So instead of it just being for youth, it's multi-generational. So this means that anyone who walks through the door of a library in North Philadelphia is going to be invited to participate in our program. And I think that we're getting all of this recognition, not just because we're introducing people to these new tools and technologies, but because we're asking a lot of questions about what libraries can and should be today. We're asking questions directly to those community members, questions like, how can you find meaning in this? How can you find meaning in this new technology? How can you make it personal to your life? What are the kind of things that we can learn together? And how can we use this way of thinking and doing as a way of improving our lives and our communities? And to me, that's how you measure a successful maker program. Thank you.